Welcome back to Sage and Seer Chats. It's been a while. We've had summer and we've had a few celebrations and a house move and a business move, and it's really good to be back in the driving seat again. It's really gives me great pleasure to welcome to the show today Marcus Fernandez, who is somebody that I've watched interview several homeopaths, and I contacted him and asked if he'd come on the show. So Marcus is a father and a homeopath, and also the founder and principal of the Centre for Homeopathic Education in London, and really delighted he's come on the show today to have a chat to us all. So welcome, Marcus. How are you?
Thank you. Oh, very well, thank you. Very nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Great. Yeah, just give us a little, I love hearing about how homeopathy found people. And how it came into your life, because everyone's got a really amazing story, and often it's like a wow moment. So give us a rundown on how that experience found you and how it unfolded from there, Marcus.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like you said, everybody's got their own story to tell, and I always believe that you don't decide to get into homeopathy or study it; it gets you when the time's right. And and once it's got its finger on you, then that's it. It will start pulling you in. And people have different experiences, as you said. A lot of people have experience from taking a remedy, or treating their kids, or they've been sick themselves and got into homeopathy. But for me, I mean, I was really young. I was like 20, just 20, and I knew nothing about homeopathy. It wasn't on my radar. I'd done business studies at school, at college, and I was in a band. In fact, that's always what I was, a singer in a band, play guitar, and actually I wanted to be a rock and roll star in my rock and roll group. So yeah, I was way far away from homeopathy or healing in general. It was nothing I ever particularly inspired to. And even though actually at school I used to love human biology, I sort of really resonated with that when I did biology. But apart from that, it wasn't on my radar. And how it all came about was that I said I was in a band and we were about to go and tour to Germany. And I had no money, I was a struggling musician, it was all part of it, suffering from my art. And yeah, so normally you get paid after the gigs that you did. And so I had no money, and even to go, just to get on the bus when we went to Germany. So I had to go and get a job, and this was like 1990, 91, and there was a recession here in the UK, and I couldn't get a job anywhere. I looked for a job, a part-time job somewhere, couldn't get anywhere.
Okay.
I went for a job as a bingo caller. I didn't get that. I was a bit devastated. But the only job I could find was working in a nursing home with elderly people with dementia. And again, it was nothing that I particularly wanted to do, but it was the only job I could get. So I started working there, and it was on really low wage, like £2 an hour, something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Really low paid, but I started working there, and I was there a couple of weeks. And I was having a coffee one morning in the coffee room, and this lady, one of the nurses there, said, we started chatting, and she said, you know what? You'd make a really good homeopath. And I went, what?
Wow.
I went, what?
Yeah, what is that?
What is that? I didn't know what that name meant. And she explained about homeopathy, and she explained what homeopath was, and also she was wanted to apply to train as a homeopath, and she thought I should. Was an open day. She said, you should come with me. And I was like, what? No, you don't get it. I'm only here for a short period of time. I'm in a band, blah, 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 usual thing. She goes, no, I think you should come. And I very politely said, no. Anyway, every time I saw her, every shift I worked at, if she was there, she said, oh, I think you should come. Please come with me. I really feel strongly you should come. And I was like, what is it with this woman? And in the end, I gave up and I said, look, I'm going to come along. I'll come with you, right? I ain't signing up to anything. I'll come along to the open day with you just to keep you company, just to shut you up. But I ain't signing up for it. And she said, no, that's fine. That's good. Just come along with me.
Yeah.
So roll forward a few weeks, and it was the day before the open day, and I woke up with a really bad tonsillitis. I used to get a lot of tonsillitis because I used to sing in the band, and
Yeah,
But
of
he's got a lot of
course.
tonsillitis.
That's your tools. Yeah, your voice.
That's right. Exactly. And I'd normally go to the GP, get some antibiotics, usual thing. But that day, I couldn't get in to see the GP. So I thought, okay, I'll try this homeopathy stuff out. And if it works, then I'll go for this open day. And if it doesn't work, I ain't going to go. So I got the bus into town, went to the local health food store, and there was all these remedies. Like, there was this on the Weleda range.
Oh, yes.
All these different remedies like arsenica, all these Latin names. Like, wow, what the hell's this?
What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, I always remember Nux Vomica, and I thought, what a great name for a band, Nux Vomica.
Yeah.
A great name for a metal band, heavy metal band. And then the remedy that seemed to fit my symptoms was the remedy Gelsemium. Because I also had a headache, like a band on my head, and I was feeling weak. So I bought that, took it, went home, and I took the remedy. And I remember just falling asleep on the chair after taking it, and I woke up, and I was soaking wet with sweat.
Yeah.
I thought, my God, that was powerful. How the hell was that?
What happened? Yeah.
What happened? And I was pretty like, but I had to change my clothes because I was sweating so much whilst I was asleep. And this happened all day. I'd take another one, same thing would happen. I was even in the pub that night, sweating like anything, but actually feeling quite clear in my head.
Yes.
It was like something was going on.
Yeah, there was a clearing or something.
Yeah, something was clearing out, but I had the clarity as I was going through it. And then the next morning I woke up, completely disappeared. It had gone. And this would take days and days to normally go, sometimes I have it for a week. And so I went to the open day. I went to the open day. And I remember still not intending to sign up or anything. And I remember listening. Sorry.
There you go. Just confirming all your story.
Exactly. So that was the dog. So I went to the open day, and there was Robert Davison was speaking, and he was, the late great Robert Davison. He taught most homeopaths here in the UK. He started the first college in the UK back in 1978 here for lay practitioners, as well as the Society of Homeopaths.
Okay.
And I heard him speak, and when he spoke, something went. I just remember going really quiet inside.
Mm.
And I'd never experienced that before. And it was like I was hearing truth for the first time.
Yeah.
Something really spoke deeply to me. And I felt, I know this. I know this. Whatever he's saying, I know it. And it was quite a profound moment.
Oh, wow.
And the second thought was if what he's saying is true, how come the whole world doesn't know about it?
Yeah.
How come the whole world doesn't know about it? And
we're trying to change that.
Absolutely. And yeah, well, I made that then I signed up there and then, and the rest is history, So, I made it my mission from that moment that I would let the whole world know about what homeopathy is. And I trained as a practitioner and went into practice and and then set the school of, the Centre of Homeopathic Education, CHE, up in 1998. And we continue to flourish online.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was an amazing journey.
I think that's part of the magic and the depth of homeopathy started right at that first conversation you had with that nurse in the rest home that day.
That's right.
And it's like a door is opened and it starts to work its magic behind the scenes. And the fact that you got sick the day before you had to go to the open day, and you took the remedy and it had such a profound effect on you is often what happens to a lot of people.
That's right.
And how they find homeopathy, me included, really, really sick in India. Yeah. Went and saw an Indian physician, gave me a tiny little white pilule, sweated, went to bed, sweated it all out, and was like, wow, what just happened? But from there, Marcus, you trained, and did Robert actually, were you in his school at that time, or was there another school?
So I joined Robert's school, which was the Practical College of Homeopathy. And in those days, homeopathy was very polarized, whether very classical school or you went to a practical school.
Okay.
and really all the practical school meant was that you use different methodologies, really. But it was quite a time, because he, you know, when you went to his school, I remember going to tutorials and people wouldn't talk to me because I went to the Robert Davison's practical school, because there was such a bias towards classical homeopathy. And I never really got that. I never really understood that. I thought, well, surely it doesn't matter how you practice. It's the patient that is important, and the clients that is important. And that's why we set up CHE in '98, because as a training, we wanted to do both classical and practical homeopathy. That it shouldn't be methodology driven. It should be patient driven. So whoever walks through the door, you've got a tool in the toolbox that can help that person. So
absolutely,
you know, and because one spanner doesn't fit all, one way of prescribing doesn't fit all. And I know this from experience. You know, I've worked in drug and alcohol projects. I've worked all over the different parts of the world. I've worked under a tree in Africa, in India, as you mentioned about India. I've worked all over. And the one thing that I truly believe is that you need to have a toolbox, because, you know, we've got to adapt our prescribing to where the person's at, not where we think we're at, and, you know, get everybody to fit into that one way of doing things.
Yeah, 100%. And there's so much more going on in the world today from when kind of homeopathy was first birthed, that we need more, I think, a lot of the time than just one single remedy.
Yes.
People are, you know.
Well, I think we should always be open. I think what does Hahnemann say? He talks about being the non-prejudiced observer, about not being judgmental. I think we should always be learning as practitioners, as homeopaths. I'm a constant student. Even 30 years down the road, I'm still learning. I'm still,
absolutely,
because I want to be able to help the people that I treat. I still practice homeopathy. I love homeopathy. It's what I do. It's who I am. Even though I run the school and all the different things I do, I'm still a homeopath, and I'll be a homeopath until I take my last breath, because it is who I am. And it's such my vision and my mission has been, really, from that point, is to help enhance the health and vitality of humankind through the application of homeopathy. And I'm passionate about that. And I you know, I want to also help inspire others to continue to do the same, and not forget how amazing homeopathy is. As you said, everybody's got a story to tell how they got into it. The Arnica experience, the India experience. We've all got these experiences, and it truly is a phenomenal healing modality.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. It's just, I think the fact that one pill has the ability to change somebody's life on so many different levels and give them a clearer perspective. Like you said, you started to have such clarity from the gelsemium, and it has that capacity once people actually find it then and start to take it and get involved with it. It has that power.
Absolutely. And how I see it, and I had it with a patient this morning, a conversation, how I see it, it's a key to a lock. It's a key to a lock. You know, the remedy itself is not powerful. It's like a key to a car. It's the interaction with the key and the ignition that you know, we contain all the natural healing wisdom we're ever going to need. It's all within us. And all those remedies do is take us back to the position where we can decide again. I had that conversation, especially in chronic disease. I had that conversation with a client this morning. The same thing. You know, I've given them a remedy, and it's brought this stuff up from the past. And I said, this is now an opportunity you can now decide again. It gives us that opportunity. So, but the pill in itself it's not. I remember Robert Davison saying this very clearly. The pills in a bottle, these aren't a bottle of homeopathic pills. The homeopathic side of it is the reason why you're giving it is homeopathic. So you know, it's like cures like. You know, it's a game of snap. Whatever they're presenting, then the remedy is what you give. It's actually very simple. It's a law of similars.
Yes.
And we forget that sometimes as practitioners. We go into analysis paralysis, and actually it's sometimes good to read a beginner's guide to homeopathy again and just go back to the principles of what homeopathy is about.
I remember actually Marcus has interviewed loads of homeopaths who've either taught me or that I've read their books of or that I've watched lectures on or whatever. And one homeopath who I love came to the Irish School of Homeopathy, Mike Bridger.
Oh, Mike, yeah.
And he's just such a great teacher, because he really does teach from his heart, and he's really witty, and he injects a lot of humor into his lectures, so I always remembered them because he was just good crack. And I remember him in one lecture saying, like, you've got down to a handful of remedies, choose one. If you're stuck, just choose one. It's going to do something. Just pick the remedy and open the door and see what happens. And then
Absolutely.
Second prescription, you'll get more of a clearer picture or an idea of where the patient is, what they're at, what's going on, and then you can go from there. But just pick something.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with Mike. I mean, Mike's a very good friend of mine, and he what's great about Mike, he's been practicing a long time, teaching for a long time, but he's kept his humility. And
Absolutely.
He doesn't let you get above your station, He wants you to keep it grounded, because it's about, and I totally agree with him this, it's really about, if you're treating a patient, the most is, what you want to know is that remedy helps or not. It's not about any ideology or any system. It's about, has that remedy helped that person? And as you said, even if you're down to 6 remedies out of 3,000, well, how great's that? You're down to 6 remedies. And like I said, you give one, and from my experience, homeopathy is very benevolent. Even if you give the remedy, it's the law of similars. These remedies, especially the polycrest, are so big and so have much broad action that they'll have an effect. What I've found in practice, and whether you found the same, that if you give a remedy, then it will, if it's not quite the right remedy, it will show you a bigger picture of the remedy that's needed. It will enlarge the remedy picture.
It will bring the thing to the surface that needs addressing in some way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's about really, and this is one thing I've learned and makes my practice a lot easier when I came across this, was that I'm just following the patient. I'm following the patient's vital force. What is the patient trying to show me? What is their vital force showing me? And what if you follow that, then it makes life a lot easier.
Absolutely.
It makes it that then when you have a consultation, that, and I believe homeopathy, I mean, there's different types of prescribing, obviously, acute prescribing, chronic prescribing. But say you're doing the chronic consultation for the chronic case, then I really feel that consultation, the space in between, is really crucial. And I love the quote from Rumi: beyond right thinking, beyond right thinking and wrong thinking, there is a field. I'll meet you there.
I love that one too. Yeah,
and
that's where we have to go.
That's where we've got to go. A place of neutrality in that space in between us and the patient, the client, and that's where the magic can happen within that space. And to really truly be with somebody, with the client or with the patient. You can't listen and think at the same time. You've got to be truly with them in that present.
Be present. Yes, it's so important to actually, I think you're dead right. Be in the field with them, really holding that space, but as well allowing their field to hold the space so that you can get a sense of the energy that's being exchanged in that moment.
Absolutely.
You get so much insight from sometimes I stop writing notes because there's a moment unfolding and your awareness has shifted to the point where you just have to be right there in that moment, not writing, not looking around the room, just totally in that person's, whatever they're releasing or gifting to you, or, sharing with you maybe something they've never shared with anybody else, and they've finally been given that space.
Absolutely.
To talk about it. That really truly is, as a practitioner, to be able to witness that. It just is very humbling.
Incredibly humbling, and as you said, when you're in that space, this is what Hahnemann talks about again, of this thing about the unprejudiced observer, that when you're in that place of neutrality, then anything can come up in that space because people don't feel judged. And sometimes they will say, I've never told anybody this, but or I don't know why I'm telling you this, blah, 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 and it all comes out. But it's about really being present. And I think I just think it's an incredible, like I said, I'm incredibly grateful that I have that opportunity to be in those spaces with people. on a daily basis. And I think it doesn't, when you practice, it doesn't have to be a draining experience. That's only the case if you're coming from
Totally.
here, but if you're coming from here, it's a whole
Yeah.
different space. It's a
Yeah.
whole different space.
You would know, Marcus, the amount of clients that say to me, the actual session alone, just even receiving the case, that is where the healing starts. The minute you open your door or make the phone call or receive an email, the energy and the healing field is opened.
Yeah.
And it begins. And then when they come in for consultation, that's so cathartic for a lot of people. Absolutely. Because of exactly what we've just said. There's a lot of times where you've never been able to voice exactly what's happened to you in your life. And I think that's a real gift of homeopathy, as opposed to kind of all the counselling sessions that some people go to get to a certain point, whereas you can nearly get there in one session sometimes with homeopathy. Because
I think it's down, and I really think it's down to the practitioner. I really feel that it's in direct proportion of your own personal development that you're doing. And I'm a great believer that as practitioners, we've got to be constantly self-reflective and working on ourselves and, looking at our own stuff and our own, try to improve as much as we can, not to be perfect, but to be in a very honest, self-reflective process that you have somebody, whether it's your own supervisor you go to, even if you've been years in practice, it's still good to have a sounding board or somebody that you can go to in order to also be listened to yourself, because this can be a lonely practice by yourself. So I'm a great believer that we need that support. I know I have that support. I have mentors. I have people that I go to. Because to me, you can only take people as far as you're at. You can't take them any further. And so I really feel that, and I think this is missing a lot sometimes in homeopathy, that we all want to learn all the information. But actually, we also need to learn about self-care and self-nurture.
100%. Yeah. I know part of my training in the Irish School of Homeopathy was we had to have a homeopath, so that we understood the process of being a patient, as well as how the whole kind of consultation unpacked itself, and also prescribing and stuff, but also for our own healing. And that having an extensive list of other therapists and holistic kind of modalities that you work with. Like, I have a huge network around me of other people I can recommend if they need something else, or if indeed, like you said, I need some help.
And you're absolutely right, having that network. So often I will recommend people going to have some body work.
Yes.
Be it cranial work, cranial psychotherapy, cranial osteopathy or massage. It's about sometimes people need other things as well.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
And if you have that, and I know some practitioners get worried, I'm going to lose my patient, I'm going to lose my client. It's like, what are you talking about? Your patient has got to be at the center of everything. And I've had lots of patients thank me for sending them to see the osteopath or sending them somewhere else. Because sometimes they need that. They need that. So I think that the patient should always, or the client. I use those words, patient and client, because I know in some countries when I'm doing webinars, they don't say the word patient, they say the word client.
I know.
All the same patient. So I
Me too. Yeah.
But it should be the center of everything. That person is employing me to help get them to their highest state of health. And what I normally do with my clients or patients is, when they come to see me, and they say they come in, they've got chronic eczema, they've had it for 6-7 years. I always set my stall out at the very beginning and say, well, I normally, as a rule of thumb, say for every year you've had it, it takes a month to clear. So this could be 6 to 7 months work of treatment. However, let's review it after 3 months and see where we are. So I think when you do that, it's better than just having a patient come out every month and they've got no direction. They're not being directed. They don't know how long it's going to take. Maybe people have never experienced homeopathy before. So I think it's really good to set your stall out in the very beginning, but putting the patient at the very center of what we do.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I guess that's why we're all in it. We want our patients, clients, to get well again, and to be that, that really healthy, vital version of themselves that they want to be as well. I wanted actually to segue a little bit now, Marcus, into kind of the school a little bit more, because
sure.
I guess with everything that's happened in the world in the last, nearly 2 years, there's been this massive explosion in people looking for alternative ways to be well and to maintain their immune system. And I guess because you have the school and you've moved online a lot of your classes, I wanted really just to kind of touch on how the school came about, and then also just in terms of the levels and the percentage that online learning has risen. Have you noticed a rise in the amount of people studying homeopathy? Because that's something I'm really interested in. So
yeah. So where do we start? How I started the school?
Yeah. Because I reckon that
was
would
always
be
a
cool.
story.
Yeah.
No. Well, as I mentioned, I started the school back in 1998 with 2 other colleagues. And the idea that what we started the Centre for Homeopathic Education was, or CHE as it's more commonly known, was that we wanted to bring together people that I said, bring together an education where it was truly eclectic, and it was, classical homeopathy, practical homeopathy, that people learn different methodologies and different tools and ways of prescribing at the school. So we start very much off in classical homeopathy for your first year. You got your philosophy, you got the real principles embedded down from Hahnemann all the way through to Kent. And then as you go through the course, you'll learn another methodology like the Isiagas Layers method. And you'll learn how to do that. And Dion to Brett, and I think Dion probably taught you, I don't know if he taught you as well.
Yeah, love Dion. Amazing guy.
Yeah. So he teaches all the methodologies that we do. But we still go back to the classical homeopathy methodology. And then the people learn the Burnett method, the organ support, organ drainage method, which is low potency, looking at the organ. And then they learn things like tautopathy, giving drugs back in potency, as well as some polypharmacy, physical generals methodology. So people how to help people through drug management. So people learn all these different tools, as I mentioned previously. So when they walk out of CHE, they've got tools in the toolbox. The second most important thing for us, we wanted people to build their practice whilst they're still studying with us. And we borrowed this from the psychotherapy model. So students at CHE, they start building their practice whilst they're still studying with us, either from the 3rd year of the 4-year part-time course or from the end of the 1st year of the 2-year fast-track training. And because we really believe that if you can set up your practice, and you have to have a supervisor and you have student insurance, but if you can do that whilst you're studying, by the time you qualify, you already have a practice up and running. Now, I remember when I was even though I love my training, we weren't really taught how to build a practice, and we had like a half-an-hour lecture at the very, very end of the course. Basically, we're told just give out some leaflets and you'll build a practice. Well, guess what? That didn't happen. I gave some leaflets out and nothing happened. Remember, I was only young. I was that's probably about 23, 24. So this was my only career, and I was devastated. I had all this homeopathic knowledge, but didn't have the information of how to build a practice.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So we encourage that from the 3rd year of the 4-year part-time course, or the end of the 1st year in the 2-year fast track. So that's the jewel in the crown, I think, of what we do, because you learn homeopathy by doing it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it gives the students an insight. Then even more so, is this what I actually want to do? Because my husband's a beekeeper. He teaches beekeeping, right? One of the first things that he does is get the guys suited up and bring them down and open a hive. Because if somebody's got a fear of bees that they didn't know about, then they know about it straight away.
Absolutely.
And it helps them understand, okay, is this for me, or is it something I need to kind of rethink?
Absolutely.
So brilliant way of doing things.
Well, because you learn you don't learn swimming on dry land. You have to get into the water. So it's really important, as well as the clinical training that you do with us with our live clinics. It's still you still got to be doing it yourself. You still got to be doing it yourself. So it's a really crucial part, I think, of what we do training wise. And the second question you asked about how things have changed during the pandemic. I mean, we were sort of doing stuff online really from 2016 when I was doing a lot of webinars online, and even when people don't really understand what webinars were really, especially the homeopathic community. But then obviously that grew, and then during the pandemic, we'd already launched our training online. Just testing it out for our first year, worked really well, and then the pandemic hit and lockdown hit, because we're based in Bloomsbury Square in London. Our physical classrooms and teaching and offices is in Bloomsbury Square in London. So obviously lockdown happened in the UK here in March, whatever date it was, March the 20th, and we were, and then we had to adapt like most people had to. But because we'd already had the online courses, we knew what to do. And we flipped it all online, and it was great. Students were very supportive. I mean, everybody was in the same boat, and we continued on the training. People graduated that summer, and then we didn't go back into the classroom until September of this year. We remained all of last year online because of the uncertainty, and as you know, we locked down again here in the UK.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it was a really good decision. But our online, and that was on Zoom. So the live classroom thing was on Zoom then.
Yeah.
But for our actually online courses, which is our recorded videos with some live elements, tutorials are live, that just really exploded. And what I saw, because we have a home prescriber course with Hilary Dorian, and we were selling it for £160 before the pandemic. I just really felt that people were so disempowered around their health and well-being that we just gave it away. We just said, look, everybody, have this. Learn what you can do by yourself. Look at what you can do in the home. This is to beginners, to people.
Wow, amazing.
And that went viral around the world. I mean, we had, I think now nearly 20,000 people registered to watch that home prescriber course. And it was an incredible response. And what it showed me, and I've been this a long time now, 30 odd years, what I realized, I've never seen such a shift in people's consciousness around health and well-being. It's put it right into the forefront of everybody's mind. But the second thing it's done around training is that people have suddenly, it's caused them to pause and say, actually, what am I doing with my life?
Totally.
I want more purpose. I want more meaning in what I do. And
richness.
Real surge in people wanting to train as a practitioner as well. So,
right.
I mean, and even
that's
people
what we want.
And if you look at Google Analytics, a lot of information on Google, people searching for homeopathy, people searching for a homeopath online went up 187%.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
It was huge surge, huge surge. So you've got to look at the data. This is not opinion. I always say, is this fact or opinion? It's a fact. The data's there. People are searching for it. I mean, people searching for natural or alternative medicine's gone up something like 600% year on year. People are looking. They're looking.
They are searching for, And in that, Marcus, then what I found interesting throughout my training was when you look back through homeopathy and the history of it, it's always been predominated by men. Yes. And there seems to have been this huge shift. Like when I trained, I think there was in my first class 22 of us and only 2 men. Right. And that has kind of been something that's traveled through all my training. When I graduated, I was in a class of 8 women. And now we did have men, more lecturers and teachers were male. Yes. But how do you find that being a man when it's kind of predominantly a woman's profession? In the sense that there's more women seemingly training as homeopaths and as established homeopaths. Is that something you've noticed yourself, that you've given?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, even when I was training, it was predominantly women. What I do with CHE, you may notice this as well, like if you listen to any of our webinars, or I try to get a really good balance of men and women, because you're right. It seems there seems to be not that many men training, but a lot of male teachers. And I think there's always at CHE we've tried to have that balance, trying to have that balance, because I think it's important to have that. I think it's interesting how often you sometimes see, I think it's more men maybe in osteopathy as well for some reason, say them. I really don't know. I really don't know. But I think that it's actually it's changed. I've noticed it's changed the past couple of years. It's starting to, more men are starting to come into it.
Good.
But for us with CHE, we try to, especially on the teaching staff, have a real balance of ratio between male and
I love actually that some of the interviews you've done, you're right, you do keep it very balanced in that sense. I love hearing you interviewed the guy from Ainsworth. There was people that you've interviewed that I mean, I knew about them, but I'd never heard their story. So it's really amazing to get their story. But I keep meeting loads of men, and I'm like, you'd make a great homeopath. And
yeah,
really,
well, I think there's a lot of great people out there who make great homeopaths. I mean, it's sort of 100%. I think it's not for everybody. Obviously, it's not for everybody, but I'm biased, but I think it's like one of the most complete systems, really. Whereas you're looking at you mentally, emotionally, as well as physically, our concept of miasms and chronic diseases, where Hahnemann was so way ahead of his time, because really it's modern day epigenetics. It's I just think it's a phenomenal thing. So, but I'm biased because I love it so much. But I think it's. Yeah, but also I think there's an issue with as well around identity as a homeopath. What are we? Are we a therapist? Are we a clinician? Because remember, historically, a lot of the very famous homeopaths, the books that we read, historically, there were medics, there were doctors.
Yeah, MDs, yeah.
Yeah, and I think really from the 1980s onwards, it got a little bit sort of mixed into with therapy as well. So I think there's a debate to have. What are we? Are we therapists? Or are we clinicians? Are we integrated of both? It'll be an interesting conversation. But I sometimes do think that it can be an issue sometimes within our profession.
It definitely can, and I think the kind of the understanding still even in popular culture around what a homeopath is, just like what you said, still a lot of people haven't even heard the word. But if you say arnica, they're like, oh yeah, of course, you know. Well, and that's one of the reasons I started the channel in the first place, was like my passion was probably like, yours. I'm only 4 years a homeopath, so I'm a baby in terms of being a practitioner. But this is something I think everybody needs to know about. And if they haven't tried it, at least try it once. See a homeopath, again, see what happens.
And as you know, there's been a big skeptic campaign against homeopathy. Some people feel very strongly against it. And how I see it is, well, just try it. You just try it. And it's not a belief system. It's not that you have to believe in it for it to be true. A placebo, people say it's all placebo. Well, placebo always has an effect in any therapeutic relationships. But then you expand homeopathy, and we look at homeopathic vets using homeopathy, farmers using homeopathy on their cattle. I think what's a really exciting area is agro-homeopathy, where they're using it in agriculture, where they're spraying it on crops. And there's research going on now in different parts of the world. And the crops responding, increased crop yield by you spraying homeopathy. So I just think there needs to be a lot more, and there is more research is happening around these areas. And if you go to the Homeopathic Research Institute, which was set up by one of our graduates, on Dr. Alexander Tournier, where they're collating this information and disseminating it. And I just think it's like anything, just try it. Just try it. That's all you got to do. And if it doesn't work for you, okay, fair enough. But it's worth a try, surely. Just because it doesn't maybe fit in your scientific model or the model of today, and you can't understand how it works, well, just try it. Just try it and see what happens. Try it, see what happens.
Absolutely. And I also, I think, try it. And sometimes homeopathy can be like finding a good hairdresser. If you go to one and you don't kind of connect, then try somebody else. Always ring them first for a chat and see if there's that connection there, because that's part of the process as well, is that you have a resonance with your
Well, I
home
think,
care.
but you like I said, I always say that it's like you get good plumbers, bad plumbers. I mean, just because you had a bad experience with a plumber doesn't mean all plumbing is bad.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I totally agree, and I think that the best way to find a practitioner is personal recommendation. Try to go
Totally.
personally recommended if you can,
Yeah.
because it just makes it, like we do with most things, we personal recommendation with people, and and just yeah, and just see if it can help, and see if it can help you. I, you know, because it's there's many ways, and people have had chronic problems for many years. Then you
Yeah.
know it can be an. That's why I said it before I set my stall out. I'll listen to the case, and they've had it for a long time. It may take time to unwind,
Mm, mm.
because
Yeah.
you know disease is often a process, especially if medication's been included in that. So
Yeah.
sometimes you know it's a process. Health is also a process, getting people back to the state of health again.
Yeah.
So you know.
Yeah.
But most people's
100%.
concept of health is not being sick, but it's much more than that. It's about health, it's about vitality. It's about, you know, it's like as a kid, you know, you're full of vitality, full of, and I don't like to use the word energy because it's misused, because you can get energy from a can of Coca-Cola or Red Bull. That was not an advertisement, by the way. But that's false energy, you know, and you'll get a dip afterwards. But vitality is something else. Vitality is
Yes.
something that is that you know, it's wake up in the morning and you're feeling connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
a sense of contentment. You know, waking up refreshed. You know, you're basically in the rhythm of life, like very small
Absolutely.
kids
That
are. You know, I've
connection.
got small kids and I see it. It's like they've got vitality. They wake up in
Yeah.
the
They're
morning, and go,
very much in the moment. You
yes,
know,
totally in the moment.
I was talking about this with my kids yesterday in the car, actually, because there's so many people around at the moment. The energy's very heavy and it's almost depressive. And I said to my kids, what's the opposite to depression? And they said, happiness. And I said, well, let's look at that a little bit more. I think that it's vitality.
Mm.
And they were like, well, that makes more sense. You know, I've got teenagers as well as young kids, but they were like, that makes more sense, Mum, because the word depression is like pushing down, and
Yeah.
you know, it has that energy of kind of heaviness to it. Whereas if you're vital, then you're present, you're light, you know, exactly what you said. You're
Yeah.
connecting to the rhythm of life. And I think,
Exactly.
yeah, that's in terms of being a homeopath, guys, that's what we are treating as your vital force, which Hahnemann calls the Vesin. And I mean, there's cultures all over the world. You can call it prana, chi, ki, mana in New Zealand. You know, every language has a word for the vital force. So
absolutely. And it's about stimulating that vital force with the remedies. That sometimes you can get a little bit stuck, and you just need the key to the lock, and your vital force will then take over. Western medicine calls it the immune system, and I said chi, prana. There's all different versions of it, but that's I believe that, you know, we have that as our natural state. So again, look at very young children; they have it as a natural state. They are in the moment. They're not dwelling on the past. They're not worried about the future. They're in the moment. So like my little daughter, wake up in the morning and go, oh, what's today about? You know, she's just in the moment. It's like what the day can bring. And it's like, we have that still within us, but we just have a lot of thinking going on generally a lot of the time. But we're always, I think we're always connected. You know, we're like a beach ball. You put the beach ball under the water, it wants to come back up again. Yeah. Same with our vitality. But what happens, it starts to get, you know, we're born here and we're here now, and different things happen along the way. And it's almost like layers, like blankets get put on top of us, and layers of who we are. Yeah. And we're chugging around at like 35%. But as you remove these layers, especially with homeopathy, as you remove those layers, more vitality is released back up again. It's still there. It just gets released back up again.
Yeah.
You're allowing and that's the opposite of homeopathy, to get you back to that state of vitality. So, I'm a great believer it's there. We have it. It's within us. But sometimes it's just layered and we just can't see. It's like putting blankets over a light. The more blankets you put on, the light gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. Yeah. And the more you lift it off, the brighter it gets as well. But we've all got it within us.
We have. So how can people find the school, Marcus? How can people find you, and I'll link all those into the bottom of the chat, so don't worry.
Sure.
If you miss it, and yeah, let us know how we can find you.
Yeah. Well, CHE is simple. www.chehomeopathy.com. I've got a website now. I think it's just been launched called marcusfernandez.com. Quite simple. And I've just written a little book. I'm just looking to see where it is. Oh, it's over here. So I've just written a book.
Oh, great! Have you? Well done.
For Holland and Barrett. It's called The Home Prescriber, and
brilliant.
It's a very simple book, and I wanted to write it because I wanted, because my passion is people learning it, using it at home, families, with the kids or whatever, because I think the more that you learn how to use homeopathy and the everyday things that come up at home, the more that you really empower your health and the health of your family.
Absolutely.
And because often, we run to the doctors. I'm not saying you shouldn't run to doctors if you need to, but what I'm saying is sometimes for things like coughs, colds, and you don't need to necessarily, and you only do it out of fear, and that's just lack of knowledge. So I put together this very, very simple book, and the way it's been designed is very simple because I wanted it to be people could access it and feel like they could just take it off the shelf and not be like worried, I might not understand all this.
Brilliant.
But it's really it covers a lot of ailments from anxiety all the way coughs, colds, warts, toothache, everything you can think of. And yeah, it's just a really lovely sort of booklet and guide to help people starting it. And also there's a QR code in there as well, so people can scan the QR code and it'll take them to a video as well with more explanation. And everybody can access the home prescriber for free, the course, the 5-part course from the Home Prescriber book.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, everybody, is that in Holland and Barrett at the moment?
Going to be in Holland and Barrett in the new year, January 2022. It's going to be in Holland.
Awesome. Oh, that's actually where I kind of started my career. Years and years ago, I used to manage the Holland and Barrett in Brighton.
Right. Wow, there you go. So it's going to go to all those stores in the UK. So.
That's amazing. Well
done. It's going along with the Valida range, the Valida range of remedies, which is really interesting because when I said I went to the health food store and I got that remedy, it was a Valida remedy. It was a Valida 30C remedy. And they asked me to write this booklet as well. And I told the story I've just told you at the very beginning of how I got into homeopathy at their annual conference. So if it wasn't for that Valida Gelsemium 30C, I wouldn't be here today. The school wouldn't exist, and the rest is history. So it's sort of full circle.
Full circle. Love it. Well, we'll leave it at that, and we'll put all your details in under the chat. Marcus, thanks so much for sharing all your knowledge and your story and experiences with me and the viewers today. And looking forward to what unfolds.
Thank you so much for asking me, Janie. It's been a pleasure. And may the vital force be with you.
Absolutely. You too.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.